In this video, I'm going to walk you through all the listing documents, where to find the info for the documents, and questions to ask your seller when preparing for a listing agreement. The first step is you're going to create your transaction. So put in your name, so street name and the person's name, template, and then set yourself up as the listing salesperson. I always recommend unchecking the wizard. I don't find it that useful. Hit create. And it's going to start the transaction. So your first step is to go on the right-hand side here and click contacts. So because you set yourself up as the listing salesperson, it's going to put your brokerage and your name in here. You just need to add your sellers in. So create a new transaction contact unless they're already in the system from something else, and select seller, add the person's name in. I always recommend putting their email address in here, especially if you're planning on sending them something to sign electronically. It'll already be there for you. Add to your address book. Keep this checked off. I'm going to uncheck it because I'm going to have a million John Does in here for training purposes. So then hit save. You'll see John has been entered in here. You'll see it's kind of fit in here randomly, but actually it goes alphabetically. So let's just say John also has a wife named Jane Doe. I'm going to add her in there. And again, I'm going to uncheck this just because I don't need a Jane and John Doe in here a million times. Hit save. And they've been both added in. Okay, next step is forms. Because I use my template, you'll see that the forms are already in here. I'm going to click the RECO information guide. Scroll down to page 13. And this is where you're going to put the name of your sellers. You'll see your information's already in here. It just doesn't auto-populate theirs. Once you're done that, you can come up here to transaction forms and switch between forms. So now we'll go to listing agreement. All right, so because we've set yourself up as the listing salesperson, it's going to automatically import some of the information. Here's both sellers. You can add an and symbol in there if you'd like. You're going to put your name in here as the designated rep. You're going to put the address of the property, and you'll see that if you tab over, there's spots here for the number address, the street name, if it's a street or avenue, put that in there. And then, Windsor, Ontario, and then the postal code. Okay, this will be your commencement date. So when is it starting? Put your start date, whatever time you'd like, 5 p.m. Now, when you're coming up with your listing date, you also want to make sure that the date you're setting it up for to go on MLS, you'll be ready with your photos. So plan out how long it's going to take you to get those photos done. Make sure your sellers are ready. They may have some things that they need to do to the house beforehand, before photos. So we'll take all those things into account. And I think what I'll do is I'll set it for the 17th in this case. It gives me lots of time to be ready and get those photos done. And in order for the listing to actually go on MLS, it needs to be, the listing period needs to be at least 60 days. So make sure you're covering that as well. So I'll just do like September 30th. That's plenty of time. Okay. Then you determine what your list price is. Okay. And you put a price in there and it will automatically fill out the written out part. Okay. You do not need to put anything next to Schedule A. Unless you're adding additional schedules, okay? So keep scrolling down here. Now we're on to our commission, okay? The seller agrees to pay the listing brokerage a commission of. This will be the total commission that you're charging, including what we're paying the cooperating brokerage. So I'm going to just put, for instance, 5% here. If there's a line here, you can put a dollar amount instead of a percentage. Just stay consistent throughout your commission if that's the route you're going to go. So in this case, 5% total, 2.5 to the coppering side, 2.5 to the listing side, okay? You also want to make sure you're putting in a holdover period. This will cover you. For instance, a buyer came to view the property while you had it listed and they decided to write an offer after it expired. You, as long as it falls within that holdover period, you're still entitled to commission. So I would put about 90 days there if you can. Now we're going to scroll down. There's a spot here that they're going to initial. In the event this agreement expires or is canceled or otherwise terminated, the property is not sold. The seller, by initialing, consent to allow other real estate board members to contact the seller after expiration or other termination of this agreement to discuss listing or otherwise marketing the property. So whether they want to be contacted by other people, it's does or does not. Most of them opt for does not. They can choose who they'd like to work with instead of having people contact them. There's a spot here for signatures for the brokerage, which would be you. Then your sellers will sign and date. I always recommend putting their phone numbers here. No one will be contacting them but you, unless there is some reason that we can't get a hold of you, or God forbid something happens to you. We'll be able to contact the sellers and sign a cancellation or get them information that they need. This part is to declare that you have insurance, which you have to have in order to be licensed. So you'll put your name in here, and then you'll sign below. And then the clients will sign here to acknowledge that they've received a copy of the agreement. And then you'll see when you created those templates that the information is already importing in here for services that you'll be providing to your client, and that entry access clause allowing other agents to access the property without you being present. Okay. So once you're done that, we're going to switch on to the next form, residential data info form. Now, this is the form that MLS will get all of the data to post the listing. So it's very important that this information is accurate. Okay. Now, it will pull information from the listing agreement, which is nice. So your start date and your expiry, your price. Now, everything that's red is mandatory. You need to have that information in there in order for them to process. There are 2 exceptions, obviously. If your property is only listed for sale, you don't need to put anything under lease price. Same thing with CB share or to lease CB share. It's one or the other. Some people will list for sale and for lease on the same form. You can do that as well. But don't fill in the other if you're not planning on leasing the property as well. Okay, the address has come up here. It looks like I put street in the wrong spot on my listing agreement, so just add that in there. That was for the unit number. Side of road will be the the direction that the property sits on the street. So for instance, if you're looking at Deerbrook, our property is on Eugenie Street. The street, Eugenie Street, runs east to west, west to east. So we're either on the north or south side of the street. So in our case, we're on the south side of Eugenie. So you're going to write south in there. Okay. District isn't needed. Sub-district will show what area the property is located. So for instance, if the area is in LaSalle, it's 09. Okay. And you can actually get the area by going to Matrix, do a little search here under residential and go to map. Okay, we'll go in map that way. I think there's actually something wrong with the website right now. Generally what happens is the map will come up. You can scroll in and you can see the boundaries for each area, and it'll say the number in the barrier. Okay, since that's not really working, I'm going to go back to my input form. You can always come back to this if you don't know what the area is. Next, we're going to go, so you'll see city has been entered already in here. Nearest cross street is whatever street crosses the street that the property's on, the closest to the house. So it doesn't have to be in the nearest intersection. It needs to be whatever the cross street is. Okay, so you put that in there. Your legal description, you can get this information off GeoWarehouse. So you would go to Tools, GeoWarehouse. Hopefully this loads. Here we go. I'm going to just put in a random address here just so you can see. But if I was listing this property, go to property report here, scroll down. You can see all the details about the house, who owns it. You also want to verify that this information is correct when you're listing the property. So if only one person contacts you, but there's multiple people listed, just make sure you can get signatures from everyone and everyone's on board. You can see the last sale price and when it was, the lot size. There's your legal description. If you click this little box right here, it'll automatically copy it. Go back here and paste it in, and it'll automatically put the legal description in there, okay? If I go back to GeoWarehouse and keep scrolling down, you can see the ownership type is freehold. You can check that off here. CB share, this is whatever you're offering the cooperating brokerage. So in this case, it was 2.5%. Your branch ID, if you work for Deerbrook, 175. My name, and then my code that I'm assigned to with WeCar. Okay. Frontage and depth, you can also get that on GeoWarehouse. Just scroll a little bit further down. Right here is your frontage. And depth isn't required because sometimes it's irregular, but if it is on here, you can go ahead and put that on there too. If it's irregular, just write irregular in there or leave it blank. Approximate taxes. This is something that you will need to contact your seller for their tax assessment paperwork. You can also, if the property is located in Windsor, you can go to the City of Windsor website and look up the property taxes. I'll show you an example here. I go to citywindsor.ca, go to e-services, public property lookup. I'll just use the same address that I was using, 27, oh, that's Essex, never mind. I'll just use 59 Eugenie, which is Deerbrook's address. You can click on it here, click taxes and assessment, and you'll see these are the total taxes for 2025. You just put that amount in there and put 2025 there. Okay, obviously this is commercial building, so the taxes are a lot higher. Acreage, GeoWarehouse will tell you if there's acreage. Chances are most properties in Windsor don't have acreage, but just verify that ahead of time if you're going to put something in there. Right here will show you if there's acreage. Okay, and back here, you can also check off NA or unknown if you're not sure. Then you have your possession. This is what the seller's looking for, a closing date. So you can put in here immediate if they're looking for something right away. You can do like 30 to 60 days, or you can put an actual specific date. But you can't do, immediate to 60 days. You have to put in a range there, okay? Then you'll see your utility water here, municipal connected. If you're really not sure, you can always verify with the seller. Indicate whether the property is listed for lease and for sale, or just for sale. In this case, it's just for sale. Sorry, I skipped over occupant, who's living in the property currently, if the house has the seller living in it, a tenant, or vacant. Okay. Showings, if you have a lockbox on the property, just check off lockbox. Zoning, if the property is just standard residential property, you can just put RES. I'm not sure if the zoning is on GeoWarehouse. Yes, it is. R1, you can put that in there as well. It's also available on your public property lookup. So in this case, again, it's a multi-use commercial property, so that's the code that we had looked up. You would just put that in there. But I only really change it from RES for a residential property if it's like, a specialty type of property. Some residential properties, like for instance on Dougal, there are some properties there that have specific zoning. They can be converted to commercial because they're on Dougal. So that's something that I would probably put the specific zoning in for. Next, you'll see there's a spot here for rooms and level, the levels that the rooms are in. These are all the rooms, not just bedrooms and bathrooms, okay? So if you scroll down to page 3 of the data input form, there's actually a little legend here that gives you what all the codes are, okay? And you'll get used to them as you fill these out more often. But you'll see up here, M is for main, 2 is for second level, 3 is for third, fourth, fifth, lower level, basement, attic, You can use all of those there. So main floor, we'll say foyer, main floor, living room, main floor, kitchen dining combo. Sorry, I keep reading the tab over. There's a kitchen, there's a dining, but if they're together, you can put them in as one code. And then just kind of walk through the whole house and put all the codes in there, storage, laundry, family room, living room with a fireplace. There's, your primary bedroom, and then you have your regular bedrooms. And then over here, you'll see level for bathrooms. This is where you're going to put all the bathrooms. So if there's a main floor bathroom, B4 would have a 4-piece bath. So for instance, toilet, sink, tub with a shower is a 4-piece. Okay. Maybe your second level has an ensuite 4-piece bath. E4 is ensuite 4-piece bath. Okay. And again, you'll get all those codes at the bottom. Then you have your utility, sewer, and sewer availability. Sanitary, connected. You'll see like the other options here are like available or at that lot line. If the property's got a fully functioning sewer, it's most likely connected. All right, next is your realtor remarks. This is what clients will not see. Okay, this is only what realtors will see. So this information, you're going to put obviously the property description, but you can put offer presentation information. You can put additional information that you want other agents to know, sewer attachments for home inspection report or something along those lines. And then down here, realtor.ca, this is what the public would see. So you would just put your remarks in there. The reason we don't put all those details in there is sometimes there's, information that the public shouldn't know. And we don't usually put the offer presentation information in there because we want clients who aren't represented by realtors to contact a realtor for the information. Okay, so that kind of encourages them to do that. If you have just your remarks in here and you'd like them to both be the same, you can check off this box here to also use for realtor.ca remarks. Then you'll see there's a section here for inclusions and exclusions. This wouldn't include, obviously, the appliances because on the next page, there's a spot where appliances can be included if checked off. This is more like other things. Like, for instance, if they're including, bar stools that match the bar, or they're excluding a gazebo that is actually, screwed down in the backyard, or they have TV mounts that are attached to the wall and they don't want that to stay with the property. Again, that would consider it a fixture. So you want to make sure that those things are all in there. Okay. Then you have your year built. Again, you can get that on GeoWarehouse. Year built right here. Okay. If you're not sure, you can put UK. All right. There's an ages approximate, property has never been occupied, or to be built options as well. And if it's brand new, you can put any for new. Attachment style, attached, detached, semi-detached. Type of dwelling, you'll see here, it'll give you options for the maximum of check marks you can have for each category. But again, everything that's red is required. Property type, parking type, driveway, your exterior finish, foundation, basement, heating and cooling. You're going to fill all these things in, okay? Your heating fuel, flooring. You'll see fireplace is grayed out. It's not required, but if you do have a fireplace in the property, just check off what type of fireplace they are and what the fuel is. Okay, people like to know those details. Rental equipment. You're always going to check something off in here, even if there's no rental equipment. The hot water tank is either owned or rented. You're going to check one of those boxes, and then anything else that applies. So you also want to be making sure that you go over these details with your seller. Make sure that they don't have a whole comfort system that's rented. Furnace, AC, dehumidifier, thermostat, like all these things could be included and rented. So just verify with them ahead of time, because if they are renting it and you don't disclose that and it's not written into the agreement, your client can be on the hook for paying for those, paying them out. And obviously, if you didn't direct them correctly, the seller is going to go after you too for, having that mistake. Hot water tank type, is it electric or gas, etc. number of bedrooms. This is above and below grade. And then your number of full bathrooms, anything over 2 is considered full, a 2-piece, sorry, I should say. And then you have half bathrooms, and then roughed-in bathrooms are just like the plumbing's there, just nothing else. Okay, so you'll find that in like unfinished basements, for instance. Ensuite bathrooms, check yes or no. And then you can check off any other features here. If you're including appliances, check off what's being included. Any other features of the house, site influences like tree lot, shopping nearby, playground nearby, things like that are important to people. So you want to make sure you include that. If the storage shed is staying, if there's a greenhouse or a covered porch or anything like that, just check those things off. You'll see water features. If the property has a pool or a hot tub, you'd be checking that off. Rental income potential. Again, these are all great. They're not required, but the more information, the better. Unless it's not verified information, then just, tread carefully. Boat access, public right of way, year-round access. This is more like for cottage country, things like that. Waterfront, you would check off if it applies. Garbage pickup, UFFI, accessibility, SPIS, seller property information statement. These are just if it's available. So leave them blank if you don't have that. Data modification, check off yes. This just allows you to make changes in here if for whatever reason. Maybe you checked off that the furnace is rental equipment instead of the hot water tank. You can go in and you can fix that without having seller's initials. Calling expired permitted. That's just going to match your listing agreement where it says does or does not want to be contacted after it's been expired. Okay, that needs to match. Your clients will initial here. I think I forgot to mention the sellers also sign the bottom here on this page, and then that's complete. Okay. Next, I'm going to go to my seller direction. This form just has permission from the seller, whether you're holding off offers, you're going to look at them right away, or you're holding off offers, but they're willing to look at preemptive offers. Okay, so you're going to check those off. There's also a circle there for giving consent for a lockbox being installed on the property. Have that initialed as well. Okay, and then scroll to the bottom here, have your clients sign and date, and then you're also going to sign and date as well. If you are holding off offers for a specific time frame, you also need to note that in your remarks of your listing agreement, or your data info form, I should say. Lastly, your individual identification. Now, technically, you're not required to fill out the individual ID form until you have an offer in hand. Let me tell you, it's very hard to get that when you're dealing with, receiving offers, encounters, and things like that. Do it with the listing agreement. Just makes it so much easier. It's already done. You don't have to worry about it. Okay. So what you're going to do is put the address of the property, your name, the day you're filling it out. You're going to see their ID in person. So ask them if they have a driver's license or a passport. The other photo ID that's acceptable is an Ontario photo card, but those are the only 3 photo IDs that you can choose from. So you need to see those in person. What I normally do is I see it in person, I take a picture of it myself, and then I fill it out later. That way I'm not filling this form out right in front of my seller and taking up a lot of time. Okay. If they don't have one of these types of ID, they also have the option to do a credit file method check, which we run their credit to verify their ID. Most people don't opt for this option. And then there's the dual ID process method where there's 3 options here. And you just need to pick 2 of them to identify the client. So for instance, you have a name and date of birth. That can be a birth certificate. Name and address can be a utility bill. Name and confirm a financial account number. That would be like a Visa bill. So you just pick 2 of those and ID the person. Okay. I'm going to keep scrolling down. Is there a third party involved? You check off yes or no. If there is a third party involved, you will also have to identify them as well. Now, there's certain situations where you would never consider it being a third party, but they actually are. For instance, you have a like maybe a father is helping his daughter purchase a house and he's giving the final approval for her to write an offer even though he's not going on title. That makes him a third party. Maybe mom has decided to provide the deposit for their purchase, and she writes up the deposit with her personal check to Deerbrook Realty or wherever it's going, and it comes from her. Now she's a third party. We need to identify her as well. Okay. So that's how you kind of determine a third party. Then you're going to be going through this client risk. You're going to answer all of these questions. And then when you get down here, you're going to see if it's question number 1 and the answer no, it's 2 points. And you're going to add up those points and total them at the bottom here. If your points exceed 10, you'll need to come to me as the compliance officer and we'll determine if a report needs to be submitted to FINTRAC. Okay. But just take into consideration, there are some things on here that you're going to be checking off. Like, have you previously worked with the client? Maybe you have. Okay. There's another one here. Does the client live within 10 kilometers of an international border or 5 kilometers of an international airport? They live in Windsor? It's yes. Is the client Canadian citizen or permanent resident? If you check off no, you need to be questioning whether they can purchase a property in Ontario at this moment because there is a foreign buyer ban in Canada right now. Does the transaction involve a third party? Yes or no? These are all things that you need to be careful. And, if you have any questions about any of these, please come to me before you fill them out because we want to make sure that they're done correctly. FINTRAC compliance, they are really cracking down and making sure these forms are filled out properly. Now, business relationship, you're going to check off, like, are you helping them find a residential property? Put in here, your business dealings with the client. Like, are you close friends with the person? Like, this is super helpful for FINTRAC when they're going through your paperwork. The more information on here, the better, the less likely you're going to get flagged. It does say optional, but it is helpful. Okay. And then, so that's the end of that form. Now, once you're done filling out all of your forms, you can hit save and exit. I always recommend going through the forms again, making sure everything's filled out properly, and then we can go on to the next steps. Okay. I'm going to go through in my next videos the buyer forms and listing lease and the tenant side of the lease, just to make sure that you understand all the paperwork and how to explain and where to find the information. And then we'll go on to how to print it out, how to send it for signatures, things like that. Okay, hopefully this was helpful. On to the next one.